The guitars and bass at this point are doing a great job of really complementing the beat. So it's all got
Mm.
this newfound energy of somebody who's just come back from the bathroom, perhaps.
Yes, let's put it that way.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. Right, Peaky Blinders. My name's John. His name is Andy. Sometimes I wonder if you're really living. Or what is this feeling you think that you're giving? Well, you can sit down, wrecked and dismayed, wondering where are all the plans that you laid. More on that another time. But first, we have a song to listen to. Andy, what have you got in store for us? Or should we?
I don't know how you like your porn crumpets, John, but I like mine psychedelic. So I'm going to offer you up some psychedelic porn
I was going
crumpets.
to say buttered.
Well, you're going to have
Hot
them
and
my way.
buttered.
So
Hot
this
and buttered. I'm a woman.
Yikes. So this is actually a band that I was first introduced to. I believe I'd heard about them because they are akin to a couple other bands that we've either discussed off camera or featured on the channel. But this band in particular was offered up to me by Greg on Into the Music years ago. And they've popped up on they've dropped new music since then, so they've come up on my algorithm or whatever, and I've checked them out, and I've become even more of a fan of theirs than I was just after that one listen of a very interesting titled song. As their own name would suggest, they have a lot of fun with titles. The song that I checked out with Greg was called Found God in a Tomato. So
I remember.
yeah, yes, I enjoyed that track. And I've since become even more of a fan of theirs, so I'd like you to check out a
Oh, awesome.
slightly newer track by them. It's called Hot Heat. Wow, hot. Just like that. So please take all of this, go off, give it a listen, and come back and let us know what you think of these psychedelic porn crumpets.
Okay.
It's easy come, easy go, laugh it off. Why should I go to work to realize I'm poor? Sometimes it's easier to live a life without the highs. Then I got nothing to lose anymore. I try to put my feet up then and now. I count all my eggs, even when they're not around. It goes on, it goes on, it goes on, it goes on and on.
Okay, interesting. So this start at the beginning, from what I remember before, the last song which Greg had Andy listen to, it had like lots of influence from the Verve, early the Verve, and a bit of Cool Shake as well, and a bit of Pink Floyd. This has got more of that sort of 90s indie that's based in kind of Mersey beat sound almost. It's really nice sounding, and it has that tannoy announcer filter on the vocals that we've spoken about many times before. The song kind of clears up, as it were. I mean, it's not as dramatic as going from AM to FM, but it definitely comes fuller and clearer sort of after a dozen or so seconds, and it goes along nicely. And then we've got into this manic beat. Let's see where this goes. It's about 40. Let's just go back to the change.
It goes on and on. Let's make it, baby.
That's really interesting. So we go into this beat, and it's got a bit of that sort of, dare I say it, a bit of Arctic Monkeys about it, but something else as well. There's a bit of more playfulness, not so much of that sort of northern um, ire and derision. This sounds a bit. There's a touch of the. I think it's keyboards in with the guitar that's has this manic bouncy beat. It's sounds like a theme to a dodgy nightclub in Chatham. Yeah, so like this is more WKD Blue sort of sound. But yeah, and there's something about there's a nice distortiony fuzziness to it, which I enjoy, but it makes it hard to disseminate the words. Something like baby, no. Puppy, no. Daydream, no. So he's 0 for 3 on his suggestions. And there was something about Do You Love Me? And there's lots of there's obviously some tension relationship wise. Doesn't sound like that well matched. But yeah, and then the sort of guitar drops down and that bit there, it was almost fizzing and sort of cracking a little bit. It's very interesting. And then I just caught the end of it, but it then sort of went into a sort of more, I could like jogging guitars or strumming, and that sounds definitely more Sheffield based music. Let's just go back a wee bit. This is 90s indie guitar music.
Let's make it, baby. Let's get a puppy. Do you like to daydream? We should have a party. Oh my God, just play the part. Pull out my thumb. Talk to God. He didn't want me. I'll ride my will. If nothing's too much, then take it all. All of my nothing. I'll talk to God. He didn't want
There's a lot going on here. I was just letting it go. I really like the bit after the strumming. It's almost like they're running, and then they sort of stop with their hands on their knees, and you get these discordant wheezes through these chords. Really nice. Then it drops down. You get various sort of 90s stroke noughties guitar motifs that drop in here and there. It's sounding really good. It repeats again the baby puppy daydream conundrum. No, no, no. And then we get this sort of prancing bit here, which has a sort of arrogance to it, and it kind of sounds a bit proggy and a bit 70s. It's really interesting. Um, yeah, I imagine someone with a cape at this point entering the room. Um, yeah, nice ending as well. That distortion, that sort of. It's almost like Mr. What's the time, Mr. Wolf? Funny. Yeah, this is really enjoyable actually. It was a little bit bitty, um, but still, it wasn't crazy. definitely flying around the influences more than the last tune, as I remember very dimly. Um, but yeah, a lot sort of stepping between 90s and noughties in terms of sounds, with a bit of 70s thrown in, which is cool. Yeah, really interesting. I don't think I have to listen to this again to figure out how much I like this, but I certainly do. I had boundless energy to it. Um, Need to find out more about it though. So let's go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right, so you're back. Tell us about your experience listening to these guys, John.
Okay, couple of things. So I do remember this track and the music because the band that sound like that track, God the Tomato, as it's properly pronounced.
Tomato.
Yes. It was very similar to a lot of early The Verve that I'm a big fan of. There was a bit of Floyd in there as well, and Cooler Shaker. These are all bands I like, and so that's why it's stuck in my head. I should really have gone off and listened to some of their stuff, but I never did. So good job you did that for me. So yeah, and the second thing is, just like the previous track in the music, terrible, terrible title to the song.
They're
Let's
really,
move on.
they're really good at ginning up an awful title. As
Yeah.
I've come to find out going through their discography, it's like holy shit.
Yes. Yeah, well done you. Okay, so yeah, and I know for you this song at just over 3.5 minutes, really, it again influences are there to be seen and heard, and it kind of skips through the decades, like a time traveling child, with a skipping rope and a DeLorean and whatever. But it does it without feeling rushed at 3.5 minutes, which is quite the achievement. But anyway, so we start off. The opening salvo has a really nice, almost Mersey beat to it, sort of replicated in, I would think, the early noughties. I'm thinking of a couple of British bands that it sounds like. And along with that, you get this vocal filter, Tannoy announcer number 3. So it has this sort of feel to it. And after about a dozen or so seconds, there's a mini switch in the quality of the song. When he says, I've got nothing to lose anymore, it's not quite AM to FM, but the music suddenly, just in one bounce, becomes fuller, clearer, especially the guitar and the bass you can hear properly and really up there. And we're into sort of 90s indie rock, really. As he's singing, it goes on and on. I don't know if that's a comment on it, 90s indie rock, but there you go. And then we bounced along this for quite a few lines, and then right turn, Clyde. Around the 40-second mark, the music takes an energetic turn. In comes this bounding beat. One too many WKD blues, I think. I'm at this point, I'm picturing, it throws up an image, a mental image in my head. And I'm picturing somebody resplendent in Burberry check and a pork pie hat, bouncing like Tigger in a Chatham nightclub, probably called something like Crystals with a K. Anyway, I digress. So there's a hint of early Arctic Monkeys to this sound, but with also, I don't know if there's a little bit of synth or something in there that's kind of running off the edges. So it has a dollop of playfulness to it rather than northern ire and derision and sarcasm. We get mentions, well, I say mentions, it's almost like suggestions of baby, puppy, daydream, all responded to with a withering no, also no. And he says, well, in that case, we should have a party. I don't know what he's partying about, but there you go. The guitars and bass at this point are doing a great job of really complementing the beat. So it's all got this newfound energy of somebody who's just come back from the bathroom, perhaps.
Yes, let's put it that way.
So I'm getting little snatches here and there. He says something about "Do you love me?" and then again there's more suggestions about a big house, holiday, and is it a baggie or something? Again, I'm thinking about the bathroom. But anyway, same negative response as before. And then the music sort of drops down to just like a guitar thing, and it sort of fizzles, but also crackles a little bit like a evil Alka-Seltzer. As he sings, "It's not you, it's me, my dear." And then the guitars really definitely go on a Sheffield sounding spree of strums. It's almost this sort of running motif as they're strumming away. And then they slow down and figuratively put their hands on their knees, gasping in these discordant tones. They're really lovely off-key notes and sort of chords there. And then there's a defiant squeal, and we're off again. And this time, as we're sort of jogging away, we get just a little hint of a proggy type flourish. And I think I said the reaction at this point. I'm imagining somebody has entered the room wearing a cape. It's one of those sounds. So we go back recycling through the baby puppy daydream offering. It's a firm no from the Dragon's Den. We're out. And then we go back into really nice, solid 90s guitar action, and it goes through a different few little stages and sounds, and they cut things out, but it's all very it's just pre or cusp Brit poppy type sound guitar, really, really nice. He says something about talking to God as well. I'm not really picking up his words here. And then at 250, it really does take a 70s prog turn. We have this like preening guitar that sounds almost like it's self-admiring, arrogant. It's pouting like Mark Boland. And then it takes this silly, like, what's the time, Mr. Wolf steps as it goes towards the end. And then Benito. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. I will say it's just a touch like a bit patchy in places for me. A bitty, I mean, the way of doing it. But I mean, that's just a tiny, it's not my normal whingy, oh my God, they're jumping around from bit to bit. This is a much smoother experience. It was so full of energy, different influences than before, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
Yeah. I first heard this maybe a little over a year ago, we'll say. And I heard it and I was like, oh man, this is a whole nother side of them. And it's not like a side I much prefer because like I like it a lot, just like I liked the sound that they were tapping into on the track that Greg had showed me. But it just showed me, I guess their palette was a bit more diverse than I was
Yeah,
expecting when I heard that this finished product, knowing that it's off a newer album. It's like, oh, they're there's some root things that are similar, but they're able to change and do different things from album to album, which is great and refreshing. And it's good to see that that's an attribute of theirs. Um, so yeah, I heard this and I was like, oh my God, I got to put this on the list for a song for John to do in the future. So yeah, I'm glad you listened to it. I'm glad you liked it. I wasn't sure if you had heard the episode that Greg and I did together devoted to these guys. So it's
yeah.
interesting to hear kind of your take on that sound as well, held up against your take on this, not as if it was just your first listen ever to this band. So that was interesting for me as well to hear. But yeah, let's jump into the band. They are an Australian psychedelic rock band formed in 2014 in Perth. The band are made up of English guitarist and singer Jack McEwen, guitarist Luke Parrish, drummer Danny Caddy, bassist Wyan Billion Dana, interesting name, and keyboardist Chris Young, much easier to pronounce, who began playing together, according to them, in an old horse barn in Leaderville. Some of my best times happened in old horse barns. Their genre and sound has been compared to that of other popular psychedelic rock bands from Australia, such as a couple of my favorites, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and Tame Impala. Have you listened to much King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard?
There was some stuff on Into the Music. Greg listened to maybe two.
Uh,
I know. I think if you jog my memory, I'll be like, yeah, I remember this, but I couldn't
okay.
like bring them to mind now. But I do know they exist.
Okay,
I
okay,
mean,
cool. I
but
might bring some
yeah,
of them. If that's where you are with them, I might bring some of them in the future because they are really an interesting act. So they've described their sound as an energetic mess of color and tone. The band has been cited saying that some of the inspiration for their music comes in part from classic rock of the 60s and 70s, such as Zeppelin, Sabbath, and the Beatles. However, they have been influenced by more than just the rock genre, getting inspiration also from experimental electronic jazz. Concerning the reasoning behind the name of the band, its members have given little explanation. The band claims it was chosen at random because they thought it was amusing, which explains 95% of their song titles as well. The bandmates were friends prior to the creation of the band, and it has been suggested that they became acquainted through their mutual drug dealer. Speaking of trips to the bathroom. The band began initially as a university project that Jack McEwen was working on at the time. They then continued to make music for their own enjoyment, as well as for that of their local community in what has been described as garage rave type settings. They have made a point of retaining a DIY band mantra, recording most of their own songs, as well as aiming to be very hands-on in their own advertisement. The band went on in 2017 to create their own record label, What Reality Records. The first release on this new label was a twin reissue of both parts of their High Visceral albums. On 1 year after the release of their label, though, the band had still not signed any other musicians due to financial reasons, despite the fact that they still held an ideal vision for What Reality Records as a support structure for incoming bands. In 2018 came the release of their single Social Candy, which was overall well received and led a brief national, and then they led to them leading a brief national tour through October of the same year, passing through Melbourne, Adelaide, and Perth. In May 2019, the band played in the UK at the All Points East Music Festival at the Victoria Park event. In July 2019, following the release of their album, and now for the whatchamacallit, they embarked on a national tour, passing through Adelaide, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, and again, their hometown of Perth. On February 5th of 2021, the band released the album Shiga, The Sunlight Mound. And not being ones to rest on their laurels, they released their first single, Lava Lamp Pisco, from their subsequent album, Night Gnomes, in October of the same year. Night Gnomes was released on April 22nd of 2022. Shiga, The Sunlight Mound, was nominated for Best Hard Rock Album or Heavy Metal Album at the 2021 ARIA Music Awards. Just over a year later, the band released their latest album, Franzoli, on which Hot Heat Wow Hot is featured. There could, however, be another album on the horizon, as the band released the singles Another Reincarnation and March On for Pax Ramona on November 14th, 2024 and January 30th of 2025, respectively. So perhaps these are like shades of things to come. But I gotta say, if you go through the timeline of all the albums I just said, that's a fucking lot in a very short. I mean, these guys are pumping out their shit, as silly as they're naming it. It's coming out pretty fast. I mean, every like 11 to 13 months, an album is coming out. That's pretty impressive stuff, especially when you consider all the touring that's taking place in between as well. So, writing for Atwood magazine, Heidi Reed reviewed the album. According to Cambridge Dictionary, the Italian word franzoli refers to something unnecessary added as decoration and roughly translates into frills. The psychedelic porn Crumpets took this notion to heart with their sixth album in 7 years, sticking to their guns and writing what they know rather than dipping into a different genre or introducing a shiny new sound. She would go on to add, Franzoli has been described by frontman Jack McEwen as a half an hour of ADHD on a record. The Aussie outfit added every frill and frump onto their already electrifying sound and took listeners through a chaotic kaleidoscope of psychedelic with a necessary touch of classic rock. In Jess Hutton's review of the album for Backseat Mafia, she scored it a 9.6 and wrote, Franzoli is like a musical expedition through different territories. Captain Gravity Mouse Welcome, another track, conjures images of surf rock as if the Beatles grew up playing in a garage on the west coast of Australia. All Aboard the SS Sinker, another track, invites you to let loose, offering a danceable rhythm with its signature synth and infectious drum beats. The album's dynamic range also delivers moments of reflection, as heard in Illusions of Grandeur. which acoustic melodies paired with Jack's emotive vocals create a reflective interlude amidst the chaos. As Franzoli reaches its conclusion with Mr. and Mrs. Misanthrope, it serves as a fitting send-off, closing the album like a cinematic credit scene. This album not only showcases psychedelic porn crumpets' evolution over the years, but also highlights their unwavering commitment to their craft. Their ability to seamlessly blend chaos, melody, and groove is a testament to their talent. And I think that last little bit, this blend chaos, melody, and groove, that little sentence could describe this song pretty well, I would think. There is this frenetic chaos that happens throughout all of it, and yet you can still find the rhythm and the tempo and bop your head to it, and almost probably like a fucking nut job, find yourself dancing to it. So yeah, that sentence made me think, God, that could have easily described the song, and that's how I feel about the song. So, speaking of the song, let's get into these lyrics. My, it's easy come, easy go, laugh it off. Where should I go to work to realize I'm poor? Sometimes it's easier to live a life without the highs, than I've got nothing to lose anymore. I try put my feet up then and now. I count all my eggs even when they're not around. It goes on, it goes on, it goes on. It goes on and on. Let's make a baby. No. Let's get a puppy. No. Do you like to daydream? No. Why should we should have a party? Oh my God, you're so needy. I love it. Do you love me? These are like the thoughts of someone who just came out of the bathroom, by the way, to continue that euphemism. Let's buy a big house. No. Let's go on holiday. No. Let's get a bag in. No. Already did. Maybe we should run away. Oh my God, you're so clucky. I love you. Do you love me? It's not you, it's me, my dear. Play the part, pull out my thumb, talk to God. He didn't want me. I write my will, it's nothing too much. Then take it all of my nothing. I talk to God. He didn't want me. Let's make a baby. No. Let's get a puppy. No. Do you like to daydream? No. We should have a party. Oh my God, just play the part, pull out my thumb, talk to God. He didn't want me. I write my will, it's nothing too much. Then take it all of my nothing. I talk to God. He didn't want me. No, 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 no. And there you have these very stream of conscious coke
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
lyrics. So yeah, really glad you gave this one a listen, John. Fucking gobs of crazy frenetic energy that I really enjoyed. Probably would have enjoyed
Yeah.
much more if you had caught me coming out of the bathroom. But I do really really like this song a lot. So thanks for gonna go.
I got a couple of questions.
Sure.
One, I don't, I don't really get anything psychedelic in this at all. Um, It's interesting though because I remember when we first listened to the first Wand track,
Yeah.
critics describe that as modern psychedelic, and I don't see that either. It's maybe a different, phrasing of the word psychedelic, meaning something different to what I think 60s
Yeah.
psychedelia. I think my modern psychedelia, really, when you think about it, is probably shoegaze.
Yeah.
In terms of that trippy nature to it. I don't see that here. This is the effects you get with a different drug, like you said, like speed or coke, rather than LSD or whatever, mushrooms. Secondly, did you detect the sort of Arctic Monkeys feel to this as well?
A bit, yeah. I'll say the common denominator is probably the frenetic nature of the energy of the song reminded me of some early Arctic Monkey stuff, but I don't think they weren't the first or only band that came to mind when I listened to this song. But I could totally see there being
Interesting.
some correlation there for sure. I think maybe it did lack some of the thing like you had mentioned. This was a bit brighter and a little bit less
Yeah.
sarcastic or sardonic in the way that early Monkey stuff was, but it definitely had that party energy to it that some of that whatever people say I am has for sure. Um, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting to hear you point out that bit about the psychedelia too. To circle back to that because this seems to be almost an exclusively Australian designation, this type of psychedelia, with both those other bands. And like, not all Tame Impala screams psychedelic to me. Does it have like maybe this sort of like looking through sort of a kaleidoscope effect? Yeah, a little bit, but it's not as hit you in the face as that 60s, 70s stuff that you and I think, instantly go to when we hear the phrase or descriptor
Mm.
psychedelia. But it is something that Australia seems to be using when they're describing bands like King Gizzard and Tame Impala and these guys as well, and even some of that uh, Closure in Moscow, which is kind of like more proggy, but has a bit of
Yeah,
this
yeah.
what they would call psychedelia to it as well. All these are all bands that I really love. I don't know if I would be jump out and be like, "Oh, I love that Aussie psychedelia." That's not how I would describe it. But if that's what they're running with, it is what it is. To me, it's
Yeah,
more,
yeah.
and I know you believe this too. You don't get hung up on genres. It's just a matter of like, does it resonate with you, or do you like it? And all those bands I just named, I really do like a lot. Australia, I think, is a bit underrated when it comes to some of the artists that they put out, at least perhaps from an American standpoint. Perhaps in the UK, you guys have the proper level of reverence or respect for the rock and roll scene in Australia. Here it's a little bit different. I mean, you get one every 15 years, a band will pop up like a Silverchair or something like that. But yeah, I really and then Tame Impala, I would say, probably is the next version of that kind of. But yeah, really good stuff from my perspective. I'm glad you listened to it. It was really interesting to hear your input on this stuff, John. I appreciate it as always. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this song and this band, Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. Be interested to hear what y'all have to say down in the comments field below. If you have any suggestions by this band or similar bands or really any other band, feel free to also drop those down in the comments field below. And please, if you haven't, like, share, and or subscribe. Do whatever you can to help us here at the channel. If you enjoyed the last, half an hour or whatever this was, or any of our other episodes, please do your part and kind of spread the word if you would, please. And thank you. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.